What happened when our babysitter wouldn't unlock the basement door? I stood in my own kitchen holding a crowbar while our babysitter blocked the basement door with her body, and the thing that scared me most wasn't the trembling in her hands or the panic in her eyes. It was the absolute certainty in her voice when she said, "You can't go down there, not yet." Behind her, I could hear my 3-year-old daughter crying, and the sound was coming from underneath the floorboards, from the basement. The babysitter, Olivia, who we'd trusted with our kids for 8 months, who my wife had vetted through 3 references and a background check, was holding her phone in one shaking hand with 911 already dialed, finger hovering over the call button. "Please," she whispered. "Just wait 5 more minutes. I'm begging you." My daughter's crying got louder. The crowbar felt heavy in my grip. I had no idea what was happening, but every instinct I had was screaming that something was catastrophically wrong. My name is Aaron Fletcher, and 20 minutes earlier, my life had been completely normal. I'd left work early to surprise my wife, Nina, for our anniversary. We had 2 kids, Sophie, age 3, and Max, 18 months. Olivia Chen had been watching them since February. No, wait, I need to use a different name. Olivia Brennan. She was 23, a graduate student in early childhood education, with perfect references from 4 other families. She'd been reliable, punctual, great with the kids. We'd had 0 concerns. I'd pulled into the driveway at 4:15 p.m., planning to take Nina out to dinner while Olivia stayed with the kids. The house looked normal from outside. Olivia's silver Toyota was parked on the street. The living room lights were on. Nothing seemed wrong. I'd used my key to unlock the front door, calling out, "Hey, I'm home early." No response. The TV was on in the living room, playing some cartoon, but no kids. I walked through the house, calling for Sophie and Max. Their toys were scattered across the floor, half-eaten snacks on the coffee table, but no children, no babysitter. Then I heard it, a muffled thump from below, from the basement. We barely used our basement. It was unfinished, concrete floors, exposed beams, mostly storage. The kids never played down there. I headed for the basement door off the kitchen, and that's when Olivia appeared, seemingly from nowhere, stepping directly in front of the door. "Aaron," she said, and her face was pale, eyes red like she'd been crying. "I need to explain something." My first thought was that one of the kids had gotten hurt. "Where are Sophie and Max?" Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at the basement door behind her. "They're safe. I promise they're safe. But I need you to listen to me before you go down there." That's when I heard Sophie crying from the basement. Not hurt crying, more scared crying, calling, "Daddy? Daddy?" And my brain just stopped processing Olivia's words. I moved toward the door. She blocked me. "Please," she said. "I need to call someone first. I need you to trust me." Trust her? My daughter was crying in the basement, and this woman was physically preventing me from getting to her. I grabbed her shoulder to move her aside, not rough, just firm, and she grabbed the door handle with both hands. "Aaron, stop. If you go down there right now, everything will be worse. I'm trying to help you." I could feel my heartbeat in my throat pounding. "Get out of my way." Instead, she pulled out her phone, showed me the 911 already typed in. 5 minutes. That's all I need. Let me make this call. Let me explain to them what's happening. And then we can go down together. Please. The reasonable part of my brain said she was clearly in distress. Clearly something bad had happened, and maybe I should listen. The father part of my brain said my daughter was crying in the basement, and nothing else mattered. I went to the garage, grabbed a crowbar, came back. Olivia was still blocking the door, but now she was crying. "You don't understand," she said. "If you go down there without police, if there's no documentation, no witnesses, it won't matter what we find. It won't hold up. Please, Aaron, I'm trying to protect your family." That's when I noticed her hands were shaking so badly, she could barely hold the phone. That's when I noticed she had a bruise forming on her left cheek. Fresh, maybe an hour old. That's when I realized whatever was happening, Olivia was terrified too. "Tell me what's going on," I said. "Right now, or I'm moving you out of the way and opening that door." She took a shaking breath. "Your wife hired me 8 months ago, but I think she had a specific reason for wanting me." I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" Olivia looked at the basement door, then back at me. "I found something today, something Nina's been hiding, and when I confronted her about it, she locked Sophie and Max in the basement and left." The words made no sense. Nina was at work. Nina had left for the office at 8:30 this morning, like always. "Nina's not here," I said. "She's at her office downtown." Olivia shook her head. "She was here. She came home at lunch. We had an argument. She took my car keys so I couldn't leave, locked the kids in the basement, and drove away in my car about 30 minutes ago. I've been trying to figure out what to do. I was about to call the police when you got home." I felt dizzy. None of this made sense. "Why would Nina lock our kids in the basement?" Olivia's voice dropped to almost a whisper. "Because I found the files, the documents she's been hiding down there. Aaron, I don't think Nina is who you think she is." My phone was in my pocket. I pulled it out, called Nina's cell. It rang 4 times, went to voicemail. I called her office. Her assistant answered. "Fletcher and Associates, this is Jenna." I asked for Nina. "Oh, Mr. Fletcher, Nina called in sick this morning. She hasn't been in today." My stomach dropped. She called in sick? Jenna sounded concerned. Yes, around 8 a.m. She said she had a migraine and would be working from home. Is everything okay? I hung up. Looked at Olivia. She told me she was going to work. She got dressed in her work clothes, took her briefcase, left like normal. Olivia nodded slowly, like this confirmed something she'd suspected. She's been lying to you. I don't know for how long, but the stuff I found in the basement. Aaron, we need to call the police right now. And we need to do this carefully, with documentation, because what I'm about to show you is going to change everything. Sophie was still crying downstairs. I could hear Max now, too, not crying, but calling Mama, Mama, in his little toddler voice. Every fiber of my being wanted to just break down that door, but Olivia's fear was real. The bruise on her face was real. And Nina had apparently lied about going to work, come home at lunch, assaulted our babysitter, and locked our children in the basement before fleeing in the babysitter's car. None of that was normal. None of that was explainable. Make the call, I said. Olivia pressed dial, put it on speaker. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher said. Olivia's voice was surprisingly steady. My name is Olivia Brennan. I'm at 2844 Maple Grove Drive. I'm a babysitter, and the mother of the children I was watching has locked them in the basement and fled the scene. The father just arrived home. The children are crying but appear unharmed. We need police here immediately. The dispatcher asked several questions. How old were the children? Was the mother armed? Had there been violence? Olivia answered each one calmly, explained about the bruise on her face, explained that she'd been held against her will, that Nina had taken her car keys. The dispatcher said units were being dispatched, ETA 6 minutes. Then Olivia said, there's one more thing. I found evidence in the basement of identity fraud. Multiple identities. Documents, passports, birth certificates. I believe the mother has been living under a false identity. The dispatcher's tone changed. Don't touch anything. Officers are 3 minutes out. I stared at Olivia. Identity fraud? She met my eyes. Nina Fletcher isn't real. I don't know who she actually is, but the documents I found, there are at least 5 different identities, all with her picture. The room tilted. I reached for the counter to steady myself. That's not possible. I've been married to Nina for 6 years. We have 2 kids together. I know who my wife is. Olivia's expression was pitiful, like she was watching someone receive terrible news. I'm so sorry, but I don't think you do. Through the basement door, Sophie had stopped crying. I could hear her talking to Max, her little voice saying, It's okay, Maxie. Daddy's here. Daddy will get us. That broke something in me. I moved toward the door. Olivia didn't stop me this time. Just don't touch the documents. Don't disturb the scene. The police need to see everything exactly as it is. I unlocked the basement door. It was locked from the outside, a simple deadbolt that we never used, and swung it open. The basement stairs led down into darkness. I flipped the light switch. The fluorescent bulbs flickered on, illuminating concrete steps. Sophie? I called. Daddy's coming. I went down the stairs quickly, Olivia following behind me. At the bottom, I found my children sitting together on an old couch we'd stored down there. Sophie had her arm around Max, protecting him. When she saw me, she burst into fresh tears and ran over. I scooped them both up, checking them for injuries. They seemed fine. Scared, but fine. Mommy was yelling, Sophie said. She was yelling at Olivia, and then she put us down here and turned off the light. The light. I looked around. There was a pull-string light fixture near the couch. Nina had locked them down here in the dark. It's okay now, I said, holding them tight. You're safe. Over their heads, I looked around the basement. We didn't have much stored down here. Some old furniture, holiday decorations, tools. But along the far wall, I saw something I'd never noticed before. A filing cabinet. It was pushed partially behind the water heater, deliberately hidden. The top drawer was hanging open. Olivia saw me looking. That's what I found, she said quietly. I was looking for light bulbs. We ran out upstairs. Nina told me there was a box down here. I found the filing cabinet instead. I carried the kids back upstairs, not wanting them to see whatever was in that cabinet. Olivia stayed close behind. We got to the kitchen just as I heard sirens approaching. 2 police cruisers pulled up outside. I set the kids down in the living room, turned on their favorite show, told them to stay put. They were clingy and scared, but obeyed. 2 officers came to the door, a woman in her 40s with sergeant stripes, and a younger male officer with a body camera already recording. The sergeant introduced herself. Sergeant Rita Campbell, 19 years with the department. This is Officer Luis Moreno. We received a report of children being locked in a basement. I nodded, let them in, explained as coherently as I could. Came home early, found babysitter blocking the basement door. Wife had apparently assaulted her and fled. Children had been locked downstairs. Sergeant Campbell listened, taking notes. Where's your wife now? She asked. I pulled out my phone, showed her the last text from Nina, sent at 8:35 a.m. saying, busy day ahead, love you. The timestamp proved she'd lied about being sick. I don't know where she is, I said. She took the babysitter's car, a silver Toyota Camry. I looked at Olivia, who provided the license plate number from memory. Officer Moreno radioed in the vehicle information, while Sergeant Campbell asked to see the basement. We all went down together. Olivia led them to the filing cabinet. I opened the top drawer, she explained. I saw documents that didn't make sense, passports with my employer's face but different names. When I asked Nina about it, she became violent. Sergeant Campbell pulled latex gloves from her pocket, snapped them on, and carefully opened the top drawer wider. Inside were folders, neatly labeled. She pulled out the first one. Inside, a passport. The photo was clearly Nina. Same face, same eyes. But the name read Jennifer Talbot. Birth date, 1985. Birthplace, Seattle, Washington. The sergeant's expression hardened. She pulled out another folder, another passport. Michelle Granger. Same photo, different name, born in Portland, Oregon in 1987. A third folder, Amanda Price, born in Austin, Texas, 1986. How long have you been married? Sergeant Campbell asked me. My voice came out hoarse. 6 years. We met in 2018, got married in 2019. She pulled out more folders. Driver's licenses from 5 different states. Social security cards with different numbers. Birth certificates. Credit cards. Bank statements in names I'd never heard. All with Nina's information. Mr. Fletcher, the sergeant said carefully, I need to ask you some questions. But first, I'm going to call in a detective who specializes in identity fraud. This is beyond a domestic disturbance. This is evidence of a significant crime. She made the call while I stood there, staring at the filing cabinet. My wife of 6 years, the mother of my children, the woman I'd built a life with. None of it was real. She wasn't even Nina Fletcher. I didn't know who she was. The detective arrived within 20 minutes. Detective Frank Kovach, mid-50s, with the weathered look of someone who'd seen everything. He wore a suit that had seen better days and introduced himself with a firm handshake. Detective Kovach, Fraud Division, 23 years on the force. I hear we have an interesting situation. Interesting. That was one word for it. He went down to the basement with Sergeant Campbell while Officer Moreno stayed with me and the kids. Olivia sat at the kitchen table, still shaking slightly. I made her tea, more to have something to do than because I thought it would help. How did you find the cabinet? I asked. She wrapped her hands around the mug. The light bulb in the hallway burned out around noon. Nina was here. She'd come home, said she forgot some files for a meeting. I thought it was odd because she'd told you she had a migraine, but I didn't question it. She went down to the basement while I was changing Max's diaper. When she came back up, she seemed nervous, on edge. After she left, I went down to find the light bulbs. I saw the filing cabinet partially visible behind the water heater. I was just curious. We'd been working here 8 months and I'd never noticed it before. I pulled it out, opened the top drawer, and... She paused, swallowing hard. The passports were right there on top. I saw 4 different names immediately, all with Nina's picture. I knew that wasn't normal. I took photos with my phone. She pulled out her phone, showed me. Clear pictures of the documents, timestamps showing 1:15 p.m. I called Nina immediately. She came back within 10 minutes. She was furious, demanded to know what I was doing in the basement. I told her I'd found the passports and I was going to call the police. That's when she hit me. Olivia touched the bruise on her cheek. She grabbed my phone, threw it across the room. The screen cracked, but it still works. Then she took my car keys from my purse. She said if I tried to leave or call anyone, she'd make sure I never worked with children again, that she'd ruin my reputation, claim I'd hurt the kids. She locked Sophie and Max in the basement because they were crying, scared by the yelling. Then she left. I heard her car, my car, drive away. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't leave because I didn't have transportation, and I wasn't going to abandon your children. I couldn't call the police because I was terrified of what she might do, what she might say about me. I just froze until you got home. Detective Kovach came back upstairs, his expression grim. Mr. Fletcher, I need you to sit down. We sat at the kitchen table. The detective pulled out a notepad. I've photographed the contents of that filing cabinet. Preliminary assessment, your wife has at least 7 distinct identities that we can confirm. The documents are high quality, good enough to pass casual inspection, possibly even official verification. This isn't amateur hour. This is professional identity fraud, the kind we usually see connected to organized crime, money laundering, or witness protection gone wrong. I felt numb. Witness protection? Detective Kovach shrugged. I'm speculating, but people don't create this many identities for fun. There's a reason. Either she's running from something or she's involved in something criminal. He looked at me with what might have been sympathy. I need to ask you some hard questions. Has your wife ever behaved suspiciously? Large cash transactions? Unexplained absences? Secretive phone calls? I thought back over 6 years of marriage. No, nothing. She works as a financial consultant, runs her own small firm. She's had the same clients for years. She's normal. Boring normal. Kovach made notes. What about her background? Where did she grow up? Family? That's when it hit me. I don't know. The detective looked up. You don't know where your wife grew up? She told me her parents died in a car accident when she was in college. She said she didn't have siblings. She didn't like talking about her past because it was painful. I respected that. I never pushed. Kovach's expression said that had been a mistake. What about your wedding? Who came from her side? I thought back. It was a small wedding, just a few friends. She said she didn't have family to invite. I thought it was sad, but I trailed off, realizing how many red flags I'd missed. How many questions I'd never asked. Did you ever meet anyone who knew her before you met her? College friends? Old co-workers? Anyone? I shook my head slowly. Everyone we socialized with were people we'd met together. My friends from work, neighbors, other parents from Sophie's daycare. Kovach closed his notepad. Mr. Fletcher, I don't think Nina is her real name. I don't think anything she's told you about her past is true. And based on the sophistication of these documents, I think she's been living this lie for a very long time. The room felt too small. I stood up, paced to the window. Outside, a forensics van was pulling up. More officers. This was really happening. My marriage was a lie. My wife was a stranger. What happens now? I asked. Detective Kovach stood. We process the scene. We run the identities through our databases, see if any of them flag for criminal activity. We put out a bolo, be on the lookout, for your wife and the babysitter's vehicle. We interview you formally, get a complete timeline of your relationship, and we contact federal agencies, because identity fraud on this scale usually crosses state lines, which makes it a federal crime. He paused. I have to ask, are you in any danger? Has she ever been violent? I thought about Nina. Sweet, patient Nina who read bedtime stories and made pancakes on Sunday mornings. Never. She's never even raised her voice, except normal parent frustration stuff. What about the children? Has she ever hurt them? The question made me feel sick. No. God, no. She loves them. She's a great mother. Kovach's expression was neutral. People who create false identities and maintain elaborate lies for years are capable of compartmentalizing in ways most people can't imagine. Don't assume anything about who she is or what she's capable of. A crime scene technician came upstairs, asked Detective Kovach something in low tones. The detective nodded, then turned back to me. They're going to photograph and catalog everything in the basement. This is your house, so technically we need your consent to search. Are you willing to provide that? I nodded. Search whatever you need. He pulled out a consent form. I signed it without reading, my hand shaking. More officers were arriving. The house was filling with strangers, all focused on uncovering the truth about my wife, the woman I thought I knew. Officer Moreno took formal statements from me and Olivia separately. He set up in the dining room with his body camera recording. The questions were detailed, methodical. When did you meet Nina? Where? Who introduced you? What did she tell you about her background? Had you ever verified any of her claims? I answered as best I could, but with each question, I realized how little I actually knew. We'd met at a coffee shop. She'd struck up a conversation about the book I was reading. We'd started dating. Everything had seemed natural, organic. Now I wondered if it had all been engineered. Had she targeted me specifically? Why? I was a mid-level software engineer. I made decent money but wasn't wealthy. I had no criminal connections, no political influence. What could she possibly want from me? Did your wife have access to your financial accounts? Officer Moreno asked. I nodded. We have joint checking and savings. Her name is on the mortgage. He made a note. I'm going to recommend you check those accounts very carefully. Contact your bank, your credit card companies. Make sure there's no unauthorized activity. I pulled out my phone, logged into our bank account. The balance looked normal. Checked the credit cards. Nothing unusual. But then I noticed something in our savings account. Regular transfers, $500 a month, going to an account I didn't recognize. I'd never noticed them before because they'd been happening since we opened the account. 6 years of $500 monthly transfers, $36,000 total, just gone. I showed Officer Moreno. He photographed the screen. Do you know what this account number is? He asked. I had no idea. The financial investigation spiraled from there. Detective Kovach brought in a forensic accountant, a sharp woman named Dr. Rebecca Cross, who worked as a consultant with the police on financial crimes. She had me log into every financial account I had access to, traced every transaction, built a timeline. What she found made my head spin. The $500 monthly transfers were going to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Additionally, Nina had taken out 3 credit cards in my name, cards I'd never seen, and had been making minimum payments on them for years, keeping the balances around $8,000 each. The cards were used for cash advances, withdrawn in various cities: Chicago, Denver, Las Vegas, Miami. She's been moving money, Dr. Cross explained. Small amounts, regular intervals, designed not to trigger any flags. This is sophisticated financial criminal behavior. How much has she taken? I asked. Dr. Cross consulted her tablet. Counting the offshore transfers, the credit card fraud, and several other irregularities I've found, approximately $125,000 over 6 years. My salary was around $90,000 a year. Nina's consulting business supposedly brought in another $60,000. We lived modestly. We'd always had enough money, but we weren't rich. Where had $125,000 gone? And what was it funding? Detective Kovach had been making phone calls in the kitchen. He came back looking troubled. I ran the names from the passports through our databases. 3 of them came back with hits. Jennifer Talbot has an outstanding warrant in Nevada for wire fraud from 2015. Michelle Granger was a person of interest in an identity theft ring in Oregon in 2017, never charged. Amanda Price was questioned in connection with a financial scam in Texas in 2016. He sat down across from me. Mr. Fletcher, I think your wife is a professional con artist. I think she's been running scams for at least a decade, possibly longer, and I think your marriage might have been part of a long-term identity establishment scheme. The words didn't process at first. What do you mean, identity establishment? Kovac leaned forward. Criminals who want to disappear completely sometimes create a clean identity by building a legitimate life. Marriage, children, mortgage, stable job. It provides cover, makes them look normal, established, trustworthy. If anyone investigates, they see a suburban mom with kids and a husband and they don't look deeper. I thought about our life. The perfect suburban house, the 2 kids, the minivan. Had it all been a front? But we have children together, I said. She was pregnant. I was there for the births. I'm not saying she doesn't care about the children, Kovac said carefully. People are complicated. She might genuinely love them, but that doesn't change the fact that she's been using a false identity and committing financial crimes. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Aaron Fletcher? An unfamiliar female voice said. Yes? The woman paused. This is Special Agent Victoria Hayes with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. I'm calling about your wife, Nina Fletcher. We've been looking for her for 3 years. My hands went numb. I put the call on speaker so Detective Kovac could hear. You've been looking for her? Agent Hayes spoke quickly, professionally. Under various names, yes. She's connected to a multi-state fraud operation. We believe she's been creating and selling fraudulent identities to criminals. When we heard about the documents found in your basement, I contacted your local police immediately. Detective Kovac identified himself. Agent Hayes, this is Detective Frank Kovac. I'm lead on this case. What can you tell us? Agent Hayes sighed. Nina Fletcher, if that's even the name she's using now, is someone we've been trying to identify for years. She's extremely careful, leaves minimal traces. But we've connected her to at least 15 cases of identity fraud, totaling over $3 million in losses. She creates complete identity packages, passports, driver's licenses, social security cards, credit histories, and sells them to people trying to disappear, criminals fleeing prosecution, con artists starting over, people in debt trying to evade creditors. I felt like I was floating outside my body, watching this conversation happen to someone else. I've been married to her for 6 years, I said. We have 2 children. I'm sorry, Mr. Fletcher, Agent Hayes said, and she sounded genuine. But I don't think Nina Fletcher is her real name. We don't actually know who she is. The woman you married might be living under one of her own false identities. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. Do you know where she is? Agent Hayes asked. She assaulted the babysitter and fled about 2 hours ago, Detective Kovac said. We have a bolo out for her vehicle. There was a pause. If you find her, call me immediately. She's wanted on federal charges. And Mr. Fletcher, be very careful. People who live double lives for this long can be extremely dangerous when cornered. The call ended. I sat there, staring at the phone. The woman I'd married, the mother of my children, was a federal fugitive, an identity thief who'd been living a lie for years, maybe her entire life. Sophie appeared in the doorway, dragging her stuffed rabbit. Daddy, I'm hungry. I looked at my watch. 6:30 p.m., past dinner time. I stood on shaking legs, went to the kitchen, made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on autopilot. The house was full of police officers and crime scene technicians, but I had to feed my kids, had to maintain some semblance of normalcy. Detective Kovac came over while I was cutting sandwiches. Mr. Fletcher, I need to ask, is there somewhere you and the children can stay tonight? Family? Friends? This house is going to be processed as a crime scene for several more hours, and given the circumstances, you might not want to be here. I thought about my parents. They lived 3 hours away. I can call my mom and dad, I said. Good. Do that. Pack a bag for you and the kids. We'll keep you updated on the investigation. I called my mother, explained as little as possible. Nina had done something bad. Police were involved. We needed a place to stay. My mom's voice went tight with worry, but she didn't ask questions. Come now. Drive safe. I packed a bag, clothes for me and the kids, toiletries, Sophie's favorite toys, Max's stuffed bear. Olivia was still sitting at the kitchen table looking shell-shocked. What about you? I asked. Do you have somewhere to go? She nodded. My roommate is coming to pick me up. The police said I need to be available for more questions, but I can leave once I give a final statement. I didn't know what to say. Thank you. For protecting my kids. For finding the truth. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I know this is devastating for you. By 8 p.m., I had the kids in the car, driving to my parents' house. Sophie fell asleep in her car seat within 10 minutes. Max was fighting sleep, grizzling, confused by the disruption to his routine. I drove through the dark, my mind racing. Who was Nina? Who had I actually married? What else had been a lie? At my parents' house, My mother took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug while my father got the kids settled. "Tell us everything," she said. I did. Sat at their kitchen table, so different from mine, yet so similar, and told them about the passports, the FBI, the money, the lies. My mother cried. My father looked like he wanted to hit something. "We'll get through this," my mom said. "Whatever happens, we'll get through it together." That night, I lay in my childhood bedroom with Sophie curled up beside me. She'd refused to sleep alone, and stared at the ceiling. My phone buzzed constantly. Updates from Detective Kovac, messages from friends who'd somehow heard something was wrong, calls from numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored most of them. But at 11:47 p.m., a text came through from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you or the kids. I had no choice. Please don't let them turn you against me. I love you." And I stared at the message. She'd used a burner phone, untraceable. I forwarded it to Detective Kovac immediately. He called within minutes. "Did you respond?" he asked. "No." "Good. Don't. If she contacts you again, forward it to me immediately, but don't engage." "What if she wants to see the kids?" I asked. Kovac paused. "Mr. Fletcher, as of this moment, your wife is wanted on federal charges. If she tries to contact the children, we need to know. I understand this is complicated. She's their mother, but she's also a fugitive who's demonstrated violent behavior and a pattern of deception. Right now, protecting your children means keeping them away from her." I looked at Sophie sleeping beside me, her little face peaceful, unaware that her world had just imploded. "Okay," I said. The next morning, I met with a family law attorney named Gregory Walsh. No, I need to use a different name. Gregory Thompson. He specialized in emergency custody cases. I explained the situation. He listened without interrupting, making occasional notes. When I finished, he sat back. "This is unusual, but straightforward from a legal standpoint. Given the criminal charges, the assault, the financial fraud, you should have no problem getting emergency sole custody." We filed the petition that afternoon. By evening, a judge had granted a temporary emergency order giving me full custody of Sophie and Max, with Nina denied any contact pending a full hearing. The judge also granted a restraining order. Nina was to stay at least 500 feet away from me, the children, and our home. The FBI put a trace on my phone in case she called. Agent Hayes flew in from D.C., met with me and Detective Kovac at the police station. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an efficient manner. "Mr. Fletcher, I need you to understand what we're dealing with. The woman you know as Nina Fletcher is extremely intelligent and patient. She's been evading law enforcement for years. The fact that she maintained a stable identity as your wife for 6 years is remarkable. Most con artists can't sustain a long-term deception like that." She pulled out a file. "We've identified some of her previous identities. I want to show you photos, see if you recognize any of these women as your wife." She laid out 4 photographs. All showed the same woman, Nina, but with different hair colors, different styles, even slightly different facial features achieved through makeup and subtle changes. In one photo, she was blonde and looked 10 years younger. In another, she had red hair and glasses. "This one," Agent Hayes pointed to the redhead, "we believe is from 2014 in Portland. She ran a real estate scam there. And this one," she indicated the blonde, "is from 2016 in Denver. She sold fake financial investment opportunities." I stared at the photos. My wife. A stranger. "Do you know her real name?" I asked. Agent Hayes shook her head. "We don't. Every identity we've traced has been fabricated. We think she started creating false identities in her early 20s, maybe even younger. By now, she's had so many names that her original identity is buried." "What about fingerprints? DNA?" Agent Hayes smiled grimly. "She's never been arrested, so no fingerprints on file. DNA would only help if we had something to compare it to. A family member, a sample from a previous crime scene. We're working on it, but it's a slow process." Over the next week, the case exploded. The local news picked up the story. Suburban mom revealed as identity thief. My face was on TV, my house surrounded by camera crews. I had to take leave from work, couldn't function normally. My friends called, some supportive, some clearly just wanting gossip. I stopped answering. The kids were confused. Sophie kept asking when mommy was coming home. I didn't know what to tell her. How do you explain to a 3-year-old that her mother is a criminal, that the person she loved is a lie? The FBI raid on our house took 3 days. They removed dozens of boxes of evidence, computers, hard drives, files, documents. They tore apart Nina's home office, finding 2 laptops I'd never seen before, encrypted with sophisticated security. The FBI's tech team worked on cracking them. Agent Hayes called me with updates. We found evidence of communication with known criminals. We found wire transfer records to offshore accounts. We found evidence she was still actively creating and selling identities while married to you. She was running a criminal enterprise from our home, while I was at work, while I was playing with our kids, while I was sleeping beside her at night. The computers yielded more horrors. Nina had been selling identities for between $15,000 and $50,000 each. She'd had clients all over the country, maybe all over the world. She'd made millions. "Where's the money?" I asked Agent Hayes. "If she made millions, where did it go?" The agent looked frustrated. We're trying to trace it. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, cryptocurrency. She's very good at hiding money. We may never find all of it. 2 weeks after Nina fled, a break came. Her, or rather Olivia's, silver Toyota Camry was found abandoned in a long-term parking lot at the airport, 4 states away. Security footage showed Nina getting out of the car, carrying a small suitcase, and walking into the terminal. She'd purchased a ticket to Mexico City using one of her false identities. But here's where she made a mistake. She'd used a credit card that the FBI had flagged. Mexican authorities were alerted. 2 days later, Agent Hayes called me with news. We have her. Mexican federal police arrested her at a hotel in Playa del Carmen. She's being extradited back to the U.S. The relief was crushing. She was caught. The nightmare had an endpoint. But then Agent Hayes added, she's asking to see the children. She's claiming she has information to trade, but only if she gets to say goodbye to Sophie and Max. I felt my jaw tighten. No. Mr. Fletcher, I understand your anger. She assaulted their babysitter. She locked them in a dark basement. She disappeared. The answer is no. Agent Hayes was quiet for a moment. Legally, you have full custody, so the decision is yours. But I should tell you, she's indicated she has information about other criminals, possibly a larger organization. If she cooperates, it could lead to other arrests. The prosecutors are considering a plea deal. A plea deal. Reduced sentence in exchange for information. It made me sick. How reduced? Agent Hayes hedged. Instead of 20 years, maybe 8 to 10. I thought about Sophie asking when Mommy was coming home. About Max, who still called for Mama at night. About the woman who'd read them bedtime stories and taught Sophie to ride her tricycle and sung lullabies to Max. That woman hadn't been entirely fake. Some of it had to have been real. If she cooperates, if she gives you everything you need, I'll consider letting her see them. Once. Supervised. To say goodbye. Agent Hayes agreed to relay the message. 3 days later, Nina was extradited to the U.S. She was arraigned on federal charges. Identity fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, 28 counts total. Her bail was denied. She was held in federal detention pending trial. The prosecution offered a deal. Full cooperation, complete disclosure of her criminal network, testimony against her co-conspirators. In exchange, 12 years instead of 25. Nina agreed. Over the next month, she provided the FBI with everything. Names, account numbers, methods, contacts. Her cooperation led to 15 arrests across 6 states. A massive identity theft ring was dismantled. Millions of dollars in stolen money were recovered. And through it all, she kept asking to see our children. The custody hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks after her arrest. My lawyer, Gregory Thompson, was confident. Given the circumstances, the criminal charges, the deception, you'll retain full custody. The question is whether she gets any visitation rights at all. The judge might allow supervised visits, or might terminate her parental rights entirely. We wouldn't know until the hearing. The night before the hearing, I lay awake thinking about everything that had happened. 2 months ago, my life had been normal. I'd had a wife, a family, a routine. Now my wife was in federal prison, my house had been processed as a crime scene, my children were traumatized, and I was a single father trying to hold everything together. The custody hearing was held in family court, separate from the criminal proceedings. Nina appeared in an orange jumpsuit, shackled, flanked by U.S. Marshals. She looked thinner, paler, older. When she saw me, her face crumpled. "Aaron," she said. The judge, Judge Barbara Thornton, a stern woman in her 60s, called the court to order. "This is a hearing to determine custody of Sophie and Maxwell Fletcher minors. Mr. Fletcher is seeking sole custody. Miss Fletcher is the respondent in this matter, currently facing federal criminal charges." Nina's attorney, a public defender named Scott Jameson, stood. "Your Honor, my client acknowledges her crimes. She acknowledges the harm she's caused. But she loves her children deeply and wishes to maintain some relationship with them." Judge Thornton looked unimpressed. "The respondent assaulted a caregiver, locked her children in a basement, fled the jurisdiction, and has been living under a false identity for years. What relationship does she think she deserves?" My attorney presented evidence. The assault on Olivia, the financial fraud, the FBI's findings, psychiatric evaluations that questioned Nina's fitness as a parent. Nina's attorney countered weakly, arguing that she'd been a good mother for 6 years, that the children needed their mother, that rehabilitation was possible. The judge listened to both sides, then turned to Nina directly. "Do you have anything to say?" Nina stood, her voice shaking. "Your Honor, I know what I've done is inexcusable. I know I've destroyed my family. But I love my children more than anything. They're the only real thing in my life. Being their mother, that wasn't part of the con. That was real." Tears ran down her face. "I'm asking for a chance to be in their lives, even if it's just letters, phone calls, supervised visits when I get out. Please don't take that away from me." Judge Thornton's expression was granite. "You made choices, Ms. Fletcher. Those choices have consequences. I'm granting sole legal and physical custody to Aaron Fletcher. You are denied any visitation, supervised or otherwise, for a period of no less than 5 years. At that time, you may petition for supervised visitation if you can demonstrate genuine rehabilitation and if a court-appointed psychologist determines it would be in the children's best interest. Until then, you have no contact with these children. No letters, no phone calls, nothing. Do you understand? Nina's face went white. Please! The judge banged her gavel. This hearing is concluded. Nina was led away, crying. She looked back at me one last time, her mouth forming words I couldn't hear. Then she was gone. In the hallway outside the courtroom, my attorney shook my hand. Clean victory. You have complete custody. She can't contact you or the children. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I just felt empty. That night, I put Sophie to bed in my parents' guest room. We were still staying there, hadn't moved back to the house yet. When is Mommy coming home? She asked, like she did every night. Usually I deflected, changed the subject. But tonight, I sat on the edge of her bed and took her small hand in mine. Sweetheart, Mommy made some bad choices. She has to stay away for a while, a long while. But Daddy's here, and Grandma and Grandpa are here, and we're going to take care of you and Max, okay? Sophie's eyes filled with tears. Did I do something wrong? My heart broke. No, baby, no. You didn't do anything wrong. This isn't about you. Mommy she made mistakes. Grown-up mistakes. I held her while she cried, this small person whose world had been shattered by lies she couldn't understand. And I promised myself that I would protect her and Max from the truth as long as I could. They'd learn eventually. The world would tell them. The internet would show them. But not yet. Not while they were this young and innocent. 3 months later, Nina was sentenced in federal court, 12 years, with possibility of parole after 8. She pleaded guilty to all charges as part of her cooperation deal. At the sentencing hearing, I sat in the gallery with Agent Hayes. Nina gave a statement. I've lived lies for so long I forgot who I was. But being a mother, that woke me up. Made me want to be real. I failed. I hurt the people I loved most. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make amends. The judge showed no sympathy. You used your children as cover for criminal activity. You betrayed everyone who trusted you. 12 years is generous given the extent of your crimes. Nina was led away. I watched her go, feeling nothing. She'd become a stranger to me. The woman I'd married had never existed. 6 months after that, I finally moved back into our house. I'd had it cleaned professionally, changed the locks, removed every trace of Nina I could find. Her clothes, her toiletries, her books, all donated or thrown away. I repainted the walls, rearranged furniture, tried to make it feel different. New. Sophie started preschool. Max began talking in full sentences. Life moved forward, slowly, painfully. I went to therapy weekly, worked through the betrayal and trauma. The therapist, Dr. Amanda Reeves, helped me understand that I wasn't stupid for believing Nina. Sociopaths and con artists are experts at deception, she explained. They study human behavior, know exactly what to say and do to gain trust. You're not at fault for being deceived by a professional liar. A year after Nina's arrest, Agent Hayes called with final news. We've closed our investigation. Nina's cooperation led to the dismantling of a major criminal network. 43 people arrested, $18 million in assets seized. She kept her word, gave us everything. There was a pause. We also finally identified her real name, or at least what we believe is her original identity. My pulse quickened. What is it? Agent Hayes hesitated. Sarah Catherine Morrison, born in 1984 in rural Montana. Her parents died when she was 17. She entered the foster system briefly, then disappeared at 18. No records after that until she started appearing under false identities in her 20s. Morrison. I repeated the name silently. It meant nothing to me. Thank you for telling me, I said. Mr. Fletcher, I know this has been devastating for you and your children. But you did the right thing. You protected your kids and helped us stop a serious criminal. That takes courage. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd found Olivia blocking the basement door a year ago, and thought about Nina, or Sarah, or whoever she really was. Did I still love her? I didn't know. I loved the woman I thought she was, but that woman had never existed. What I felt now was just grief for what could have been, if any of it had been real. Sophie appeared in the doorway. She was 4 now, taller, more verbal, starting to understand the world in complex ways. Daddy, can I ask you something? She said. Of course, sweetheart. She climbed into my lap. My friend at school says her mommy and daddy are divorced. Are you and Mommy divorced? I stroked her hair. Yes, we are. Mommy lives somewhere else now. Sophie was quiet for a moment. Do you think she misses us? I chose my words carefully. I think she probably does. But sometimes people make choices that mean they can't be with the people they love. That's what happened with Mommy. Sophie seemed to accept this. She hugged me tight. I love you, Daddy. I held her close. I love you too, baby. That night, after the kids were asleep, I went down to the basement. I'd avoided it for months, but now I made myself walk down those stairs, stand in that space where everything had changed. The filing cabinet was gone, seized as evidence. The basement was just a basement now, empty, ordinary. I thought about the moment when Olivia had blocked that door, begging me to wait, to trust her. If I'd forced my way past her, if I'd refused to listen, none of this would have been documented properly. The evidence might have been questioned, the case might have fallen apart. But Olivia had been brave enough to do the right thing, even when it terrified her. Just like I'd been brave enough to face the truth, even when it destroyed my world. I pulled out my phone, pulled up my contacts, found Olivia's number. We'd stayed in touch occasionally. She'd texted on the kids' birthdays, sent a Christmas card. I typed a message. "Thank you. For everything. You saved my family." She replied within minutes. "You saved yourself. I just opened a door. What you did with it was all you." The metaphor was apt. She'd opened the basement door, shown me what was hidden. But I'd been the one to walk through, to face the truth, to tear apart my life and rebuild it on something real. 2 years after Nina's arrest, I was dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee with a woman from work, dinners with someone I'd met through a friend. Learning to trust was hard. Every time someone told me about their past, I found myself fact-checking details, looking for inconsistencies. The paranoia was exhausting. But Dr. Reeves reminded me, not everyone is Nina. Most people are exactly who they say they are. You learned hard lessons, but don't let those lessons close you off completely. Sophie was in kindergarten now. Max was in preschool. They were happy, well-adjusted kids. Sometimes Sophie asked about her mother, but less and less as time went on. The psychologist we took them to said they were resilient, that children are remarkably adaptable. They'd be okay. I sold the house eventually. Too many memories, too much history. We moved across town, bought a smaller place with no basement, just clean floors and fresh paint and no ghosts. Starting over. One evening, almost 3 years after everything had happened, I was putting Sophie to bed when she said, "Daddy, I don't really remember Mommy's face anymore." My breath caught. "That's okay, sweetheart." She looked worried. "Is it bad that I don't remember?" I pulled her close. "No, honey, it's not bad. People move on. It's natural. You don't have to remember if you don't want to." She relaxed against me. "Okay, I love you, Daddy." I kissed the top of her head. "I love you too." After she fell asleep, I sat in the hallway outside her room and cried. Not for Nina, not for the lies or the betrayal, but for the ending of something, the final closing of a chapter. My children were forgetting her, moving forward without her, and that was exactly what needed to happen. The last communication I received from Nina came 4 years after her arrest. A letter, forwarded through her lawyer, asking if she could write to the children. Just letters. Nothing more. The lawyer explained she'd completed rehabilitation programs in prison, had shown genuine remorse, had helped authorities with 3 more cases. She wasn't asking for visits or phone calls, just letters. I thought about it for a week, discussed it with Dr. Reeves, with my lawyer, with my parents. Finally, I wrote back through her attorney. Not yet. Maybe when they're older and can choose for themselves, but not now. I never got a response. I didn't know if she accepted my decision or fought it. I didn't care. My job was to protect Sophie and Max, and protecting them meant keeping her away until they were old enough to understand who she really was and what she'd done. Maybe when Sophie was 16, 18, 20, I'd give her the option. Let her decide if she wanted contact with her biological mother. But that was years away. For now, my children were safe. The basement door that had once hidden terrible secrets stood empty in our old house, somebody else's problem now. We lived in the light. I think about that afternoon sometimes, the afternoon I came home early and found Olivia blocking the basement door. How my entire life pivoted on that moment. If I'd come home an hour later, Nina might have cleaned up the evidence, gotten rid of the filing cabinet, continued the lie for years more. If Olivia hadn't been brave enough to confront Nina, hadn't been smart enough to document everything, the truth might never have surfaced. But it did surface. The door was unlocked. The secrets were exposed. And my family survived. Not intact. We were broken and reformed into something different. But we survived. Sophie and Max would grow up knowing their father protected them. Knowing that when I discovered the truth, no matter how painful, I chose them over comfortable lies. That's the legacy I can give them. Not a mother who was perfect. Not a family that was whole. But a father who faced the truth, no matter the cost. Because that's what love is. Not protecting people from reality, but protecting them with reality. Even when it means opening doors that should have stayed locked. Even when it means your world crumbles. Even when everything you thought you knew turns out to be a lie. You open the door anyway. You face what's inside, and you build something new from the wreckage. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.